Please welcome Rabbi Debra Newman Kamin from On Israel Conservative Congregation.
What an honor to be here with all of you. I arrived to become a rabbi in Chicago, a much younger rabbi. Yes, shout out to Chicago. I came to be the assistant rabbi in 1990 of a very beloved rabbi in Chicago, Rabbi William Frankel. And when I look back on those early years, sometimes they were really quite stressful. Not only did I have to learn everything about being a rabbi, I have to admit that at that time, my congregation in 1990 wasn't always sure what to do with a young woman, wife, and mother, and rabbi. It was a little challenging. But something really special happened to me when I arrived in Chicago. The women of Federation began to invite me to speak at women's events. I spoke for Young Women's Division, I spoke for Women's Division. At first, I think they were just curious to hear about what it meant to be a woman rabbi. But soon after I arrived, I began to be asked to speak on many different topics of Jewish interest. And it was in those meetings, in the lovely homes of so many women across Chicagoland, that I actually began to hone my teaching skills and my speaking skills. And in many ways, the women of Federation in my community became my first congregation. It was there that I learned to admire the power of women coming together to do good, women coming together to make the world a better place. I learned so much more from the women that I taught than I think that they learned from me. And like so often when we give of ourselves, we receive more than we've ever given. And being in the room this evening with all of you reminds me of those early days. And I'm filled with gratitude for the power of Jewish women committed to Tikkun Olam, committed to making this world a better place. This coming Shabbat, the Torah portion is Beshalach. And in this week's portion, we read about the crossing of the Red Sea. For several weeks, we've learned about the suffering of the children of Israel as they were slaves in Egypt. And it is finally in the Parsha of Beshalach that they cross the Red Sea and they get to the other side safely. There's a well-known midrash that says that when the children of Israel approach the sea and it's time to go and the Egyptian army is at their heels and they have to go, that the water doesn't actually split until Nachshon, one of the children of Israel, actually walks into the water. And we're told it doesn't split when it gets to his knees, and it doesn't split when it gets to his waist. It splits when he's finally up to his neck in the water. Our tradition teaches us that sometimes we need to wade in, sometimes even into deep water, before the way is clear. We need to at least be willing to take the first steps to begin. But there's another equally beautiful story in this week's Torah portion, and it's the story of women's leadership. It's the story of our prophetess Miriam, who stood by her brother's side, who watched him as he was placed in the Nile to make sure that he was safe. Miriam, who had the bravery to approach the daughter of Pharaoh, the daughter of her sworn enemy. It's hard to imagine how frightening that must have been. And it is Miriam at long last, when the children of Israel arrive in safety to the other side, that picks up her timbrel and leads the women of Israel in song and in celebration. With this conference, there is so much to celebrate. When it ends, There's still a tremendous amount of work to be done, and each of you will take those steps into the water to lead as you've always led. But for a moment, let's celebrate all of the achievements that you've accomplished together. In speaking of Nachshon, he had to walk into the water alone. But when I look at all of you, I know that we actually walk in the water together. If I could sing, I would lead you in song. There's a beautiful Debbie Friedman song about Miriam and the women, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'd like to ask you to say the ancient blessing that we say when we're so grateful for arriving at each moment and celebrating these special moments. So please, if together with me, we could recite the Shehechianu. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.